Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy and other Eagan community television programming is supported by Thomson Reuters, makers of Westlawn Next and based in Eagan. Through Westlawn Next and other innovative online services, Thomson Reuters is the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And by U.S. Federal Credit Union, the member-owned financial institution offering service, value, and experience you can trust to the greater Twin Cities community.
Welcome to Access to Democracy. Alan Miller back as your host, and we have two guests that I'm really pleased to have with us. Lucinda Winter has been with us before. She's the executive director of the Minneapolis Film TV Board now. And David Anderson, who I just met for the first time. And David is a local boy who made good. Went to school in Minneapolis and where, Prior Lake?
No, Wayzata.
Wayzata, and is now located primarily in LA. Has a movie which is currently being viewed in the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And we'll talk about both of your careers and what we can do to bring movies back to Minnesota. Lucinda, tell us, everybody, what the Film Board does.
The Film Board for the last 30 years has been functioning as the state's film commission. And there's a fraternity of film commissions all over the world. Just about every state in the union has one. And film commissions were really established as an economic development tool because it's just enough of a specialized industry that you need somebody who can act as a portal to your state in terms of how you get connected with industry there, how you get connected with municipalities, how you get things done. So we really function as a connector between producers and location scouts and filmmakers, TV makers, commercial makers who either are coming to Minnesota or who are located here, and the information and connections that they need, whether they're interested in our child labor laws here or they need to know how to shoot at the University of Minnesota or how to shoot in the boundary waters in terms of permitting and road closures and all those sorts of details that you really need to have access to in order to be successful. And since time is money in film and television production, we basically take what you could probably figure out on your own if you had enough time to dig and make phone calls. We can
But you have it all at your fingertips.
Exactly.
And that's why they work with you. And we do have a wealth of talent here in the Twin Cities. A lot of production, a lot of really talented people, writers, directors, actors, etc. Some who are based here, some who go back and forth. But in the last, I guess, 2 administrations, we've sort of fallen off the diving board, perhaps, in terms of movies being made here. Large, Fargo-type movies, grumpy old men type movies, things like that. And there's a reason for that. What was it?
So in the late 90s, so we had this really fabulous stretch of lots of TV and feature production, big feature, Hollywood studio features in the 90s. Towards the end of the 90s, the Film Board was starting to notice production was drifting towards Canada. And that was very purposeful. Canada was really trying to build an industry, and they were putting up incentives, financial incentives, for studios in Hollywood to come up to Canada and work and bring all those dollars and all those jobs with them. And when one of my predecessors saw that at the Film Board, he went to the legislature in '97 and said, hey, we would like to offer a little incentive to get some of that production and keep it from moving to Canada. And that was the year that Snowbait was born. The first run of Snowbait went from 97 to 2002. It was very, very small, very modest incentive. It was about $50,000, $100,000 that you could access. But it was enough to snag some production and keep things from moving north of the border, at least for us, and made a little bit of a difference. In 2002, the incentive was defunded, and that was right at the time, it was during a sort of a tight stretch for the state in terms of the budget, so they were curtailing some expenses. Right at that time, other states were jumping in. So just as we were closing down the funding for our incentive, lots of other states were getting into the game.
So you can't say it, but I can say it. We had an administration that didn't have any foresight and didn't understand that giving money and making sure that money was allocated would bring not only films here, which brings us recognition, but a tremendous amount of jobs, all sorts of jobs, hotel jobs, restaurant jobs, catering jobs, right down to say nothing of the people that work on the Sentinel,
Right.
thousands of jobs. But
Right.
unfortunately, those legislators who are not with us any longer for the most part couldn't see that, and we lost that. And even films about Minnesota were made elsewhere, where
Right.
they faked locations as to be in Minnesota. And that was a travesty, and I'm so happy now you're going to the legislature, you've had good reception, and I hope to see that restored.
Right. This year, we're about there's about 5 weeks left in the legislative session, and we have a bill in at the House and Senate that has been moving through committee for a $10 million appropriation for Snowbait, which would be the largest chunk we've had in a long time. And there is so much interest out there in shooting in Minnesota that both feature films and TV series, which more and more are being shot on location too, are not being shot on a lot in LA. And I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that we will have no trouble earmarking that money for really good, projects that will really be, will keep people busy here.
And will bring us back to the forefront
will
of
move us back in the
filmmaking
right
outside
direction.
of
Yes.
the two big cities.
Right.
Now, David, you are certainly local boy made good. You still write a column for Minneapolis St. Paul magazine, but you've relocated to LA. You have a film coming up this week at the film festival. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, the film is called Boats Against the Current, which is the last line of The Great Gatsby, another local boy, Fitzgerald. And it's a short film with Jason Ritter, who's on Parenthood, and Kellen Coleman, who's been on the Mindy Project and the Newsroom. And it's about a couple who are meeting 4 months after they've broken up to return items that they've had of each other. And rather than kind of being the same old sad story of a couple, ruminating about what could have been, I kind of did a twist on it. And without ruining the twist of the film, I'll say it involves a drone. The story came out of an experience of losing a relationship, and then also NPR's incessant reporting on drones. I feel like every morning I was hearing about the drone attacks, and
We just discussed that with Chuck Samuelson of the Civil Liberties Union.
Oh, you did?
Talking about drones getting into our privacy, and really, where do you draw the line as to what government can and can't do?
well, this film maybe treads on that, maybe it doesn't, but I kind of like to think of, in third worlds, people fear drones because they might kill their family. In our first world, drones are used as a way to get attention to an unrequited love. I don't know.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
They can be for good or bad,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Good luck to you in the festival.
Thank you.
Now, do you know Patrick Coyle, who's a local screenwriter, actor, director?
I don't know him, but
Yeah.
I know his name, yes.
Oh, yeah. I've starred in one of his films called Into Temptation,
Okay.
and I was 8 seconds on screen. They come to me when they're looking for a geriatric to die.
Well,
And
it's
To
interesting.
die well, to die very well.
so
It's interesting you should.
we spent an evening shooting 3 hours worth of shooting, and Jeremy Sisto was one of the two stars, and Kristen Chenoweth was the other star.
Yeah.
It's a good
And I
film.
was in a hospital bed dying, and of that whole evening, 8 seconds appeared on screen.
There you go.
But I did get my screen credit,
Good.
although I don't have a SAG
Card.
card yet. But in any event, talk about how important it is to bring film back to the Twin Cities, and you certainly can speak to that.
No, definitely. I mean, I shot my short in Los Angeles, but I am working on a feature right now that I hope I will be shooting in August and September here in Minnesota. And I, having grown up here and trying to, I grew up here during kind of the period of golden cinema, I'll call it. Fargo was being shot here, Mighty Ducks, and friends of mine were extras in it. And, you know, it was, we had an experience of our youth, of these feature films coming to our home state. And I went to college and I came back here to try to get jobs, and there weren't any jobs. And so I moved to Los Angeles. But with the changing landscape of media, I mean,
That is turning around today.
people can make films now for less money than ever before. I mean, it's a wonderful proliferation of filmmakers coming out, and the state needs to be able to attract these filmmakers. I mean, people don't want to shoot in Los Angeles. They make it extremely hard to shoot. You have to have specific location permits, and everyone charges for fees for shooting locations. You know, filmmakers would rather shoot elsewhere, but you know, to travel costs money, and there's got to be an incentive. I mean, what you were talking about, it is a travesty that films like Gran Torino and Young Adult, written by Minnesotans, supposed to take place in Minnesota. Well, Young Adult
Juno,
did.
yeah.
Shot in Michigan.
Shot in Michigan, shot in upstate New York.
Yeah.
There's no reason for that. And you also mentioned the talent is here.
Right.
You have talented cinematographers, set designers, production designers, people who know how to work on a professional set. You go to Des Moines, I doubt that's going to happen.
And the acting pool we have here, really, per capita, you know, we have more theater seats per capita in the Twin Cities than any city outside of LA or New York, and an incredible acting pool here that's sustained to some degree by commercial work and corporate work, but what they really would like to be doing is challenging roles.
Not waiting
in-
on tables, but,
Yes,
but acting.
exactly,
And it's
exactly.
interesting because our students are manning, MCTC students are manning not only the control room here, but the cameras today as they're interning. And by the way, many of them will be available to be PAs this summer. They probably won't let you out of the studio, but what they would like to do is be able to get their feet wet in the industry here. And we are actually using SAG actors in their 12-minute films because there are so many actors looking for jobs. They're happy to at least act in the student productions.
Right.
We've had some great ones. We really have.
Which can really elevate, you know, those productions that are going to become their demo reels in their, you know, when they're looking for other work.
Of course, film is a misnomer, really, because we don't use film anymore.
Right.
We use the red, and which we have at MCTC.
Right.
And is that what you shot your?
Yeah, I shot my short on the Red Epic. It's an incredible camera, and yeah, you get an image that is worthy of a 35 negative, and you don't go through the cost.
Right.
And yeah, they allowed me to hold it and to touch it, but then they pulled it out of my hands because of my reputation for, let's say, technical acumen.
Yeah. But I think that the whole move to digital and to web distribution, I mean, all of the tools are smaller and less expensive, and it's really given rise to filming being possible anywhere. So you can make a great movie in Georgia, in Portland, you know, you can make a movie now anywhere, and it's also made it easier, and I'm hoping that it will result. Part of the reason why there were so few women directors historically was part of it was sexism, but the other part of it was you had to be able to manage a very large camera. I mean, so the whole move into digital has really created new opportunities, and one of those opportunities is for more women to become directors, and number two, for production to be taking place anywhere.
You know, it's really interesting because when this industry started in the early 1900s, there were many women who were directors. And as they moved to the West Coast, it somehow or other phased them out, and it became a male industry, except for actresses. And as you say now, it is moving back. The pendulum is swinging back. And we have a lot of talent that I have seen. Some of the best talented people are female students and our female directors.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it has made it, though, an industry that is very migratory. People move where the jobs are, and right now Atlanta's very hot, Portland is heating up, Boston, Philly have been hot, and of course I'm talking about outside the production centers of LA, New York. But you can make a movie anywhere now, and so to attract those dollars, it's virtually impossible without an incentive. It's impossible to get. You really, it's the golden key for production. And to just sort of expand on our role, so I regard David, I mean, we're friends, but now with the fact that he is going to be rolling into pre-pro at some time this year for his movie, then my job at the film board would be to assist him, whether it's assist him with locations if he needs that sort of help, crew if he needs that sort of help, incentives, explaining how our incentive works, how to make sure he qualifies for the incentive, fills out the forms correctly, and gets into the program. So we really see ourselves as being a partner with filmmakers at the very beginning of stages of their production. And it's interesting because we get to see scripts and budgets, and then of course what we love the most is be able to not only see the movie get made, but then to sit in a theater and see it. I mean, it's really exciting for us.
And or to have a debut here,
right,
as opposed to in Cleveland or someplace else,
right,
like that. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Each time that happens, it adds to the prestige of this state, which is a favored state for so many things, not necessarily snow when there's a Twins game tonight, but for many things in terms of the ecology of the state, the beauty of the state, and the cooperation of the people. I mean, Minnesota nice is not just an expression.
No.
Minnesota nice, and I can say that as a transplanted New Yorker, is a genuine thing where the people will go out of their way to help a filmmaker, and I know that happens with our students also, to accommodate them. You need to shoot in a store on a Sunday morning, well, we'll open it up for you and make it available. In a jail, and we've had people go into the jails and things like that. That's important to a filmmaker, not to have really things thrown up in their path that make it more difficult to make the film, because it's difficult enough to make a film as it is. What you have to do is see where they can accommodate your needs and try to help you be successful, because it's successful in terms of the state also.
Right. Yeah, one of the things we do, we have a 10 reasons to come to Minnesota, and one of them is Minnesota nice and the work ethic. And I get that comment from filmmakers who work in different states, and they will tell me, people here very, very seldom, once they sign on for a project that's weeks or months long, are they going to walk away from it because they've made a commitment. And there are instances, and I hear about this all the time too, where somebody will sign up onto a project in wherever, Texas or Pennsylvania, wherever, and then a better offer comes along for a better weekly rate, and they're gone. And we have a really unique situation here in our workforce and the reputation that it has for being hardworking and committed, and you can't put a number on that, really.
Now, what legislators have led the way in terms of the House and Senate with the bill that's passed through committees now? So
it's very close to be. It's in the omnibus. Now we're at the point in the session where all the bills are being put together into omnibus bills, omnibus financing bills.
And we should mention also that the governor has been very supportive of this. Yeah.
The administration, the Dayton administration, has been very supportive of us, and the senators. Well, it's an embarrassment of riches in terms of how many authors we have, but I can tell you that the key senators for us in the Senate have included Senator Terry Bonoff. She was chief author on our bill. Of course, Senator Cohen has been really a champion for not only our industry but the arts in general. He's really was very, very key to the passage of the Legacy Amendment. He and many other good people at the Capitol and in private industry, but he really led that. The film festival, the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival, he's a board member there. And I mean, he's just our Minnesota's, arts guy. I mean, and he has earned that reputation over many, many years. But we have Senator Tomasoni and Senator Buck. I mean, we have a lot of people who, Senator Diedzik, we have a lot of people who are supporting us. And then on the House side, we have Representative Simon. I mean, we are really lucky that we have, I'd say, Lily. There's actually, on the House side, there's more than I could even name. I'm afraid I'd leave somebody out. But we've been really lucky.
So we'll keep our fingers crossed
thank
that
you.
This stays as part of the bill and it's passed, and we'll look forward to those incentives being available to filmmakers such as yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And our target is to really, I get calls all the time from people who are from here and who are working in LA who would really like to come here and make, and we are always looking for projects that, when you do get some incentive money, and we have had $4 million over the last 4 years to attract films with, you're looking beyond you're really looking for films that have a connection, whether the story is set here, the topography is perfect for here, it's a snow movie. There's always more than one reason why a film would want to come here, and we're always looking for those films. But the films that are the easiest for us to bring in and really the most fun for us is where there is a real connection. There's a filmmaker or a screenwriter who really has set a film here. It makes total sense that it's here, and it's here for the right reasons beyond the incentive. That's when it's really, really satisfying.
And we have filmmakers like Sean Otto, and among others.
Christine Walker, Sean
Pat
Otto.
Proft.
The comedic writer,
Craig
Pat
Rice.
Proft.
I mean, I could just roll off the names
Right.
of so many of them who are located here and ready to work here. And we have David Anderson, who's ready to bring. What's the feature about?
It's called After the Reality Airs, and I've always been fascinated with reality television, a la The Bachelor, Bachelorette, because who are these people really? We see such a sculpted image of them. And so my story kind of takes a look at a bachelor who's on a bachelorette-esque show. You familiar with this at all?
Right.
The Bachelorette's where all these guys are going after the girl. And so we're kind of seeing his life off the show. He has his father is terminally ill, is the reason he went on the show, to escape. And so his father passes away. He has to leave the show abruptly and return to the family cabin where he's connected with his estranged sister, and they have to begin going through their father's belongings. And the story is told through flashbacks to the reality show, where something is amiss. He's done something on this show, and it kind of comes out. And so we're cutting between two very different worlds. This reality show, this artificial facade of a house, of an experience, to this North Woods cabin that's been mired in the past and the father's memories and belongings.
You wrote it as well as you will be directing it.
I wrote it and directed it. It was a finalist for the Sundance Labs, but it didn't ultimately make it. But
Being a finalist is no small deal.
yeah, it was
A
an honor.
finalist at Sundance is a tremendous credit.
Exactly.
So,
And I should mention you have been nominated for Emmys as well.
yeah, one of the Upper Midwest Emmy for a spot I did on my web series, U.S. of Anderson.
I mean, these are not insignificant things. These
thank
are
you.
big things. Who's producing it?
I'm working on that right now. I really want a Minnesota producer, and that's one of the reasons I'm taking a bunch of meetings this week when I'm here for the festival. But I also have connections in LA, so I'm trying to figure out how I can do both. How I can, because having a Minnesota producer would be so important because of the locations that I'm working with.
Well, there are people here who
Right.
Probably are ready to step in there.
Yeah,
Right.
And I wish you good luck on that.
thank you.
Right.
I was going to say that one of the reasons that I don't think it's talked about enough is why it's so important to keep these film incentives and art incentives in place is that my mother's a school teacher in Minneapolis, and we have lost so much in our public schools akin to the arts. And we need to supplement that from somewhere. And unfortunately, that's going to have to come from the community. So Minnesota has done a good job of supporting the arts, but allowing people to have experiences outside the classroom on film sets or theatrical productions is really important, because it's no longer something public education is doing.
Right.
So you also have a television studio,
Right.
and you're surrounded by students at MCTC who are in the cinema program.
Right.
But they want that extra credit. They want to have something on their resume that will put them one step ahead of the next person. And being able to be conversant with a television show certainly would be that.
Right. And now what we're seeing too is younger and younger students are getting, because of the tools and because of the pervasiveness of digital media in our culture, we have a lot of really talented high school students who are getting access to the tools and making their own films much earlier, among much younger ages, and doing really, really interesting stuff. So there is some legacy money this year for high school arts programs that is going to address exactly what you're talking about. Because they're, sadly, I mean, the arts money in high schools is just, arts and music is, those are areas that get cut right away.
Now, what's the Association of Minnesota Motion Pictures? That's an organization I think that started last year. How does that
There's a couple
factor in?
It's sort of a group that is sort of like Minnesota Citizens Concerned for the Arts are relative to the Arts Board. It's a grassroots organization that is an advocacy group for the industry. So it's grassroots advocacy for that. So for us, it would be the film and television industry.
In other words, every little bit helps.
Yes,
and we didn't
exactly.
talk about television, but certainly you can go back to Mary Tyler Moore,
Well, and now there's
whose statue is right on Nicollet Mall.
And we have a very healthy national cable production segment of our industry. Bizarre Foods is made out of here, and there's about 30 internationally distributed cable TV shows made out of Minneapolis and St. Paul. So that's an interesting part of the industry to get into too. And one of my fantasies before I leave my post would be to see a scripted TV series being made out of the Twin Cities. So,
And that will happen.
and we're very hopeful that it will.
That will
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
So, well, you were worried about filling up a half an hour. We have about 50 seconds left, David. I want to wish you good luck
Thank you.
in the festival this week, and even better luck with bringing your film to Minnesota this summer. We've got you a lot of PAs.
Yeah. Well, we might have a part for you. Can you play an old man with a failing memory?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh.
I am an old man with a failing memory. Lucinda, 30 seconds, last thoughts.
My last thoughts, everybody contact your representative and tell them that you would like support for the snowbait bill.
And
yes.
we will certainly encourage that.
Great.
And we're worldwide also, by the way, because everybody sees access to democracy all over every place, and we're kind of thrilled about that.
Cool.
And thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure, and good luck.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Well, have a nice weekend.